What's going on, people? It's a late one, but we need to go ahead and get this in, all right? Find somebody who knows somebody to tell somebody about what we've got going on over here. If you like it, let me know. Share it if you do, and subscribe if this is what you're looking for. All right, so I'm bringing us in tonight with an old cut from 1995. This is Nas. Oh, yes, and it still sounds good. One-on-one, instrumental version. Let's go ahead and let this flow for a second. Fair use, fair use. Fair use, fair use. Fair use, fair use. All right, fair use, folks. Let's go ahead and get into it. So we'll go ahead and put the music down for a moment. All right, so welcome everybody. Appreciate you showing up who's here. If we don't get a group like we normally don't of a large number, we know that people will catch this when they check it out on the replay. So again, I've got nothing but hours that I've got to get in here. So whether I have folks here with me or not, we got to get this done. So the conversation this week has been Charlie Kirk. Now, I've said numerous times, and I will continue to say so, it is inexcusable how this man passed. Now, be it the fact that I myself have not been who you would call someone who is enamored with his take on life, because it was racist, it was bigoted, and now we're watching the government that we know trying to legitimize his legacy of racism and bigotry. Smith, what's going on, man? So what I want to do tonight here is just go through what I call the facts of the matter. Now, anyone who knows me and knows what we do over here, we get down with facts and accountability and statistics and data if it is going to be presented. What I do not care to get into back and forth with folks is misinformation that has been fed, that has been pumped into people intravenously, to whereas they may have no knowledge of the situation, but based upon where they get their information from, that's what they take to the lines, and they come out and argue it up and down. Mark Twain once said, and I'm going to paraphrase, is that you do not want to get into an argument with a fool. Reason being, they'll drag you in and beat you with experience. I'll go round for a little bit until I realize that it's a disingenuous, not to mention circular conversation. So that's what we are not going to do over here. So anybody who knows from being over on this side of the field with me, they know I come heavy with my receipts. I'm not going to say anything that I cannot substantiate, nor have I not thoroughly researched to ensure that I'm providing the best information there is. One thing that we don't need right now is any more misinformation, not to mention the attempts to legitimize the legacy of Charlie Kirk. Charlie Kirk had proven to be a racist, a bigot. And the fact that people are actually trying to call him a man of God and God-fearing is absolute foolery to me. And I say that in all sincerity. Now, as I said before, it is inexcusable what happened to this man in his last moments of his life. No one should have to endure that. Oh, hello, Shane. Well, stay around here and I will demonstrate some things if you want to see. I'm not sure why you're here unless you're here to prove yourself right or to prove me wrong, but just settle back. I'm going to be here for a little bit, a lot of information to share. So just give me your attention for a moment, bring what you have in your mind, and see what we have over here as far as facts of the matter. So let's do this, folks. Let me go ahead. Let's kill the background music for a moment. Now, I've got a few videos that have already dropped out on TikTok, on YouTube. And at this point in time, it's almost 5 in the morning. I'm overseas traveling right now. So as opposed to me trying to put everything together in an original form, I'm just going to go ahead and share what's already here. So again, fair use, fair use. And let's get this started because I've got a good amount of information that I'd like to share with everyone tonight. So if it, excuse me, at any point if you can't hear anything, let me know because I'm in a hotel and I can't guarantee that the sound is going to be good or there won't be any buffering. All right, work with me. Hold on, folks. Let's go ahead and get this done. Charlie Kirk, bigot, racist, period. Nothing else needs to be discussed. Charlie Kirk spent his life disparaging others of different minority groups, race, color, creed, sex, and now in his death, which is horrible and inexcusable, they are trying to legitimize and provide valor for the words that he spoke. It is inexcusable how this man died, but what cannot be excused is the rhetoric and the vitriol that he put into the ether throughout his life. And I, for one, am not going to be someone who stands by and watches someone of the caliber of Charlie Kirk be given legitimacy for the harmful words that he spoke routinely. Let me show you something.
Shot down and he was barely 31. Another woke coward took a life with a gun. He left behind a wife and a daughter and a son. All he did was try to speak for all of us.
All right, Tom McDonald, you are a damn fool. To make the statement, all he did was try to speak for all of us. But who are us? The same folks who spoke and believed the same type of racial rhetoric, disparaging commentary, and just hate speech that Charlie Kirk stood for. So that is the all of us that Tom McDonald is speaking of. But I want you to take something in notice here, folks. The line, another woke coward took a life with a gun. So what's being implied here is that cowards use guns to take people's lives. His words, not mine. Let's continue. So if you take a look at this stat, what group is the biggest amount of cowards for taking people's lives with guns right now? One of the last things that Charlie Kirk was being addressed was how many transgender mass shooters had there been? He said too many. I think there's been a total of 5. But if you take a look at white violence and predominantly white male violence, who would you say again would be the biggest cowards who take people's lives with a gun? Number of mass shootings in the United States between 1982 and August 2025 by shooters, race, or ethnicity. Soak it in. I spent a lifetime inside of the Department of Defense school systems, and my friends, different colors, white, black, Asian, Hispanic. We all know who I'm addressing in this video. So don't get it twisted. Let me know if you like it, share it if you do, and subscribe if this is what you're looking for. What's going on? All right. So essentially now, if you cannot read the graphic, what I'll do is drop the link, drop the link for the graphic in the description once I go back and fill it out. But it showed that the leading mass shootings that were committed throughout the time period that was noted from 1982 up to 2025 was committed by white males. overwhelmingly. If you go back, just take a look at the chart. So it surprised me when I heard young Tom McDonald stating that another woke coward. Like, wait a minute. The shooter, number one, was not black. Number two, again, we know that DEI was not going to be inferred because DEI in code means black. So those first two things were out. And then when the political affiliation came to be, it showed that the kid had not even voted recently. Now, I need to go back and just verify that because I did watch the news coverage and everyone was still throwing in, he's this, he's that. But ultimately, what it came down to is what he was not. All right, he was not one of these progressive, one of these liberals. It was one of the Trump supporting folks who took this shot. And again, he should face every maximum weight that the law has to give, because you can't go around putting bullets in people because you have an issue with their ideology. Have this person sit down and have a conversation with you, have a debate, and if need be, take it to court. However, if you lose in court, you need to pay money. Now, what am I saying about the use of free speech? Even though a person may have the right to free speech, that doesn't mean that you can use your free speech to disparage someone else. And I believe that's where we've lost the angle here. But as you know, Donald Trump lost in the utilization of his free speech as he felt he could use it by disparaging and defaming E.G. Carroll. So that case is still roaming around here. I think he's trying to get out of paying, but as you know, he lost that case to the tune of $85 million. So she has yet to see any of that money right now. But again, that was Donald Trump using his free speech, and he lost because it was proven to be defamation and he was held liable. So moving on from that, as I said, there is a fair amount of information that I've got to go through. So I'm going to try and make this quick here because I know it's still late. Where you guys are is extremely late, almost dare I say early where I am. So I want to make this worth your while, all right? So let's go ahead and get rid of that one. All right, so let's keep it moving. Now, this is an interview that Charlie did a few years ago, actually about 2 years ago. And the question came up about guns and what his approach was on it. Fair use, fair use.
Now, we must also be real. We must be honest with the population. Having an armed citizenry comes with a price. Wow. And that is part of liberty. Wow. Driving comes with a price. 50,000 people die on the road every year. Wow. That's a price. You get rid of driving, you'd have 50,000 less auto fatalities. But we have decided that the benefit of driving, speed, accessibility, mobility, having products, services, is worth the cost of 50,000 people dying on the road. Wow. So we need to be very clear that you're not going to get gun deaths to zero. It will not happen. Right. You can significantly reduce them through having more fathers in the home, yes, by having more armed guards in front of schools.
Now, more fathers in the home. Who do you think he was addressing with that comment? Let's continue on. Fair use.
We should have an honest and clear reductionist view of gun violence, but we should not have a utopian one. You will never live in a society when you have an armed citizenry and you won't have a single gun death. That is nonsense. It's drivel. Wow. But I think it's worth it. I think it's worth to have a cost of, unfortunately, some gun deaths every single year so that we can have the Second Amendment to protect our other God-given rights. That is a prudent deal. It is rational. Nobody talks like this. They live in a complete alternate universe. Sure. So then how do you reduce? Very simple. People say, oh, Charlie, how do you stop school shootings? I don't know. How did we stop shootings at baseball games? Now we must...
Ooh. And what I and others find ironic about this is that he became a statistic that he spoke about, and no one imagined this. not myself, definitely not Nick. But again, you heard for himself. He said, hey, we need to have acceptable deaths. Still, what happened to him is inexcusable, but what cannot be excused are the words that he speaks. You can say child molesting and white people as factual data doesn't mean one hates white people because the data is brought up. So what we see Shane doing right now is what I call equivocal inference, or even to the point of nominalizing the conversation, adding additional nouns, additional verbs, but that doesn't bring any legitimacy into what is being spoken of. We're looking at disingenuous conversation. So Shane, I understand your feelings, but there's nothing here that you speak of that corresponds with the facts that are being presented right now. But still, continue to stay, speak, comment. I may address from time to time, but understand that there's nothing that's going to add any legitimacy into this. Smith, do you think gun laws will change because of this, John? Do you think the law should change? They've been trying to change gun laws for the longest. But as you've seen, the last attempt that was made, a full push, was probably around 2017 or 2018, but it did not come to fruition. So as a result, the red flag gun laws that we're trying to institute never came to pass as expected. Now, we do know that in the last administration, there was gun laws that were made and put into place, but whether or not they're still standing, I can't really say. I'd actually have to go back and take a look at that, Smith. But let's have some back chat and we'll take a look at that. If anything, we may put this up on a follow-up show. Is this guy for real? And how small are you? Hard to say. I don't know if we're talking about me or if we're talking about Charlie Kirk. I myself, I'm 6 feet, 275 pounds. All right, so as I do this, I want to try and make sure I take down some of the tabs here so we don't end up buffering, because that's generally what happens when you're in some of these hotels overseas using the internet. All right, moving forward. Let's go with the next video here. All right, so what I want to point out here is that this video starts out, the first bit is chopped off. So this is a running collage here of, excuse me, I almost called him Nick, but Charlie having conversation with folks, either sitting on his panel or out in the crowd, just doing crowd work. So the question that was posed, or at least the statement that was being handled right now, was the fact that he had equated abortion to the Holocaust. So that's going to be cut off here, but you should be able to pick up the fair amount of information from the exchange here. All right, fair use, fair use. Wait a minute. Let's back that up. There we go.
It's worse.
Have a look at Charlie Kirk in action.
Rob her, happening all the time in urban America. Prowling blacks go around for fun to go target white people. That's a fact. Black crime is a major issue in our country. Why are you pushing criminal justice reform exactly? Joy Reid and Michelle Obama and Sheila Jackson Lee and Ketanji Brown Jackson, they're coming out and they're saying, I'm only here because of affirmative action. Yeah, we know. You do not have the brain processing power to otherwise be taken really seriously. You had to go steal a white person.
Now, what tickles me about this is that if anyone knows, Charlie Kirk never finished anything past high school. He started college, but did not finish. The three women that he's taking the time to disparage right now, as a minimum, all have master's degrees and above. But yet he makes the statement that they do not have the brain power for processing. Now, the crazy thing here, as I said before, is that each of these individual ladies has got higher level qualifications. Charlie does not. So what do you say in that situation? Well, I say this: people who fail to qualify will disavow, and also disparage, which is what we're seeing. Fair use.
slot to go be taken somewhat seriously. Now, the southern border is, of course, the great replacement. They're trying to replace us demographically. They're trying to make the country less white. It is an anti-white agenda. If I see a black pilot, I'm going to be like, boy, I hope he's qualified. Taylor.
All right. So again, I don't know if you're still here, Shane, but I don't know what you call this. I'm sure you would not call this racism, but it's clearly stated here. That's what it is. As I said before, DEI has never been associated with anyone else but a person of color. You heard it himself. If I see a black pilot, I'm thinking, gee, boy, I hope it's not DEI. How many ways can you explain this? You can't. But again, I'm not going to sit here and attempt to continue saying that this man is a racist or a bigot. I'm going to let him show you himself with his own words. Fair use.
Taylor Swift is now engaged to Travis Kelce. This is something that I hope will make Taylor Swift more conservative. Reject feminism. Submit to your husband, Taylor. You're not in charge. America was at its peak when we halted immigration for 40 years and we dropped our foreign-born percentage to its lowest level ever. Miss Rachel, you quote Leviticus 19, love your neighbor as yourself. The chapter before affirms God's perfect law when it comes to sexual matters. In Leviticus 18 is that thou shalt lay with another man shall be stoned to death. Can we get that picture up, Ryan, of that Marvel's Avenger team? Now, I don't know who the person is on the left. Is the person on the left that came and did the interview with Joe, the TikTok? Your government is being run by freaks. It's like immediately I have like a flashback to a country where weren't able to do Bud Light commercials. What does being trans even mean? Is that even a real thing? It means you need therapy. We must ban trans-affirming care the entire country. I do think that there is a direct correlation between someone's testosterone and their politics. On young men, the lower their testosterone, the more likely they are to be Democratic.
So if you had a daughter and she was 10 and she got raped and she was going to give birth and she was and she was going to give birth and she was going to live, would you want her to go through that and carry her baby?
That's awfully graphic.
But it's a real life scenario that happens to many people.
The answer is yes, the baby would be delivered. When blacks in America did not have the same rights they had today, they were less murderous, there was less break-ins. Why is that?
So I'm sorry, are you trying to say that blacks thrive under subjugation?
No, I'm not. I'm asking you the question. The data shows they were actually better in the 1940s. It was bad, it was evil, but what happened? Something changed. I'm done talking.
So let me go ahead and address that one right now, because obviously that was another lie. Now, when I say it's a lie, let me back it up a bit. It was the presentation of how he went about it that was disingenuous. Now, the one thing that he's not talking about when he says that before blacks had rights, there was less break-ins, there was less crime. No, it had nothing to do with blacks and crimes. All right. The less privilege that blacks had was just how life was when you looked at systemic racism back then, redlining, redistricting. Those basic factors right there had a lot to do with blacks not having access to higher income at that particular point in time. But we also have to remember that it was still the Jim Crow era. So he tried to say that crime was lower, but it seems as if as crime started going up, he was trying to say that, well, the more privileges and rights we gave, it was blacks who were responsible for criminality. Now, there's another chart that I will have to bring up, or actually I'm going to link in the description, that demonstrates who the prison population is pretty much, I won't say run by, but inhabited by. And the prison population as of right now, at least back in 2023, when the last, census was done for prisons from the Bureau of Prisons, is that you have more white inmates now, or I don't know, I shouldn't say now, but you have more white inmates than black inmates, than Hispanic inmates, or Native American. But yet we hear Charlie Kirk talking about criminality. And there's always this thing of attempting to link blacks to criminality. People seem to forget that back in the old days, the 20s or the 30s, when you were running moonshine or any other type of drug prostitution, it was the Russians, it was also the Irish mafia. You had the Russian mafia. All right. Everyone seems to forget that this was the criminality that was going on back then. Blacks weren't running anything. Even in the 60s and 70s, as the drug trade was taking off, blacks didn't have airplanes. No, we weren't running airlines that we were able to go into different countries like Cambodia, Afghanistan, bring back poppies, opium. We weren't doing that. But yet, as you see right here, the conversation of criminality always gets linked back to blacks. Even back in the 50s, you had the law and order conversation that started back then, which was attempting to link criminality to the civil rights movement. So if there was an opportunity to make it look as if the Negroes were committing crimes, that's what was done. This is the type of rhetoric that he's relying on right now, hoping that the majority of you do not see the information that I'm sharing, but instead will take his information and others like him at face value. Fair use.
Talking about Epstein for the time being. I'm going to trust my friends, the administration.
So you're
Yeah, trust his friends, the administration, because we know we'll get a lot of answers from that, right? So again, let's go ahead and remove that screen. While I'm at it here, let me go ahead and reach down to the catacombs. So there's a lot more coverage that's been going on in the last few days since Charlie's death here. And one person who did sign off on this recently was Nick Fuentes. Now, Nick had a lot to say himself. So before we do this, let me go ahead and bring this up. Bear with me for a moment while I go ahead and get this straight. I'm just going to share the entire window. We'll do it that way. All right. So again, fair use, fair use. Okay, so this is Nick Fuentes' response to what's been going on the last couple of days. Now, anyone who knows Nick Fuentes, again, here's another self-proclaimed white nationalist, spouse racism, bigotry, is not shy about it and is sorry about that, folks. Again, like I said, I'm in the hotel, so the Wi-Fi we have is what we have. So as I was saying, Nick has not hid his affiliations. He makes it clear who his heroes are, and they're all alt-right. But rather than me talk about it, let's hear what Nick has to say about the situation. Fair use, fair use.
Very delicate situation. This is a very delicate situation. I fear that this has set off a chain reaction. I pray to God there is no further violence. I pray to God that nobody else is hurt as a result of this. I hope that it stops here. It should stop here. To all of my followers, if you take up arms, I disavow you, I disown you in the strongest possible terms. That is not what we are about. And the same goes obviously for the other side. And I want to make that very clear. It would be.
Now, I'm amazed when I listen to him say, oh, this is not what we're about. Now, maybe he's saying that we are not about gun violence. But rest assured, there's been calls from violence from Nick Fuentes in the past. But what we've seen transpire right now, I'll give him the benefit of the doubt for right now. He's not talking about anyone picking up guns or anything along those lines. But still, to hear an admitted white nationalist, racist bigot speak in this manner and to also invoke God, it shows here that we're now moving to that other area of extremism that is not talked about too much, and that is Christian extremism. Fair use.
Be a profound moral, political mistake for anybody to take the bait and to engage in any kind of reprisal, retaliation, revenge. Remember, we are the good side. And what makes us good is that we have Christ. What makes Christianity and Christ so different from the other religions is that our religion is based on the bearing of suffering for the sake of even those that persecute us. An overflowing of love, an overflowing of self-giving love, so much of it, it cannot be contained. An unconditional, absolute standard of love for all of God's children, even those that are misguided, even those that persecute us, even the most heinous among us. That is what makes us different. That is what makes us good. You think you're good? You're not. You are not good. I am not good. You are a man. I am a man. You are a sinner. I am a sinner. We cannot save ourselves. We cannot save this world. God can save us. God can save the world. And God saves us and God saves the world by drawing all of us up onto the cross with him. And we join not just in his glory, but in his suffering. Real suffering, not imaginary, not a nice story, real suffering, real death, real destruction, real misery. We bear a cross like Christ bears a cross, like his disciples, like the martyrs, like the saints bear a cross. And you better get comfortable up there. Drink up. And you bear that cross, not for your kin, not for yourself, not for your children, which are an extension of yourself. You bear that cross and that suffering. You drink from that chalice for your enemies.
Yeah. So as I said again, so we're saying the extremism come about because how is it that someone can consider themselves to be the good guys when you deny actualities of the Holocaust? Again, you disparage Blacks, you disparage Hispanics, you disparage the LGBTQ, you disparage immigrants, but yet you want to call yourself the good guy. So that is just the delusion of Christian extremism that we're seeing come into play because it's been made comfortable for extremists to walk around now. Hell, you got extremists who are now part of the levers of government. So again, just to step back here for a second, Shane, I just want to address your disingenuous conversation here. So even by you saying, yeah, we got to mislead, you weren't smart enough, you're saying that it's attacking her intelligence, not her race. No, it's attacking her race by pointing out how her race is unintelligent. So this is what you would call an equivocal inference, or a part or an extension of the Southern strategy. Now, for those of you who may not be familiar with the Southern strategy was what was utilized by the Solid South, or the states that made up the Confederate States of America, to still relay the mentality and the desires of the segregationist community. Meaning that back in the day when you could say ninja, 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 you know what I'm saying? You can't say that anymore. So you had to say states' rights. You had to say busing. These were some of the things that Lee Atwater accidentally spilled back in the early 80s on how to discuss what was needed to keep in touch with the Southern whites at the time to ensure that they still voted no longer Democrat, because again, in the 1960s, you had the switch of the parties where the ideologies changed. And that was primarily because the Southern Democrats, who were the Democrats of yesteryear, which is not the same Democratic Party that we have today, they started bailing once the discussion of civil rights became prominent inside of the Democratic Party. But nonetheless, for the Republicans who are there now, remember, there used to be the Republicans who were once the Southern Democrats. The Southern Democrats in 1964, when the Civil Rights Act was passed, following the 1965 Voters' Rights Act passed, left the Democratic Party to join the Republican Party. And those Republicans who wanted to still maintain civil rights and look for the equality of all left the Republican Party and went to the Democratic Party. So when we say, getting back on point here, Shane, if you're still here, we're talking about attacking intelligence. No, the intelligence is associated with the individual. This is the disingenuous conversation that individuals like yourself like to make. They try to dance around the facts. Oh, no, I did not insult you. I was talking about your intelligence. But in many documentation, many documents that has been kept around here, the intelligence of the Negro or anyone else that was not considered to be socially superior was always brought into question. And the first thing that was talked about was their intelligence. So I dismiss you with this nonsense, Shane. And again, I'll tell you, let me bring this back here, Shane. So if she said she got in school with affirmative action, that's right. Affirmative action was put into place because of the fact there was no merit in the beginning. Because there was no merit, because there was nothing that allowed equal education to be had, that's why affirmative action was created, to ensure that opportunities that were not presented were made available. Now, a lot of this stemmed from Brown versus the Board of Education in 1954. But at that same time, we hear the issue of school choice that's trying to be pushed once more. School choice was a segregationist tactic, whereas they did not want their white children going to school with black children. So what the instance of trying to get school choice to go through and what it was based on was trying to shut down the public school system. And then by having that shut down, the monies that normally would go to the public school system would then be transferred to private schools. Now, I'm going to have a show on that in the upcoming weeks here to discuss more of how, again, the whole issue of school choice was in the beginning and still is a concept that the segregationists were pushing. And we're still seeing the same thing being attempted today. But getting back to Ms. Lee, yes, she stated that. And she stated affirmative action was required in order for her to get her opportunity, because without it, there never would have been an opportunity. So clearly, I realized, Shane, by the conversation we're having, that I'm dealing with someone under the age of probably 35 or so. So there's a lot of knowledge and history that you're probably not aware of. And based upon where you get your information from, you would not know this. But her saying that she would not have gotten in without affirmative action, that is truth, but not because she was not intelligent enough. Because, again, the woman has a master's degree, and I do believe a doctorate as well, or if she's a lawyer, it'd be jurisprudence, whereas Charlie Kirk has nothing past a high school diploma. So honestly, do we really want to talk about intelligence and achieving? But if you feel you must reply, go ahead. I'll make answer. Getting back on track. Now, of course, Don Jr. also had something to say in the last couple of days of what we are taking a look at here, folks. So just a moment, let me go ahead and clear this out. Share screen. Choose this audio. All right, folks, again, let me know if you can't hear this. Fair use, fair use.
They realize they lost the debate entirely, so they have to resort to violence. And contrary to what we're seeing elsewhere and online, it is not going both ways. It is going one way It's coming from those aligned with the Democrat Party. The hate has been fomented by those in the Democrat Party, and you can probably play hundreds of hours of those clips. It's coming from the media. Some of them are doing a quick course correction and probably scrub their social media feeds for all the things I've said about Charlie, myself, my father over the last few years. But you can't call someone who you disagree with or simply can't win an argument with a Nazi, a fascist, a dictator, a greatest threat to democracy in the history of civilization, and then pretend you had nothing to do with it when the more radical wing, and there does not seem to be all that much difference to me these days, takes up arms and tries to kill those they disagree with. It's not one way. It's not both ways. It is simply one way. And anyone who's saying otherwise, should be thrown off the air.
Should be thrown off the air. So you heard what Don Jr. was saying. Oh, it's the left, or the violence is all one way, and we know which way it's going in. So it actually is not going in the way that Don Jr. was stating here. Matter of fact, it went nowhere near the way that Don Jr. was speaking of, because when everything was said and done, the shooter was not woke, was not black either. Let me do this. Rather than have a conversation about it, let's go ahead and show it. So here is, as everybody knows, this is the shooter. Parents. Marcus, what's going on, man? Hey, appreciate you stopping in. So we've been having the numbers go up and down, but no one here who would actually subscribe. As you know, we always get some detractors who come over looking to more or less disprove anything. Again, notice the Kirk shooter was a leftist. No, the Kirk shooter was not a leftist. Actually, what was stated here is that in the last couple of elections, the kid didn't even vote. He was not supposedly affiliated with anyone. So there's that lie blown up, Shane, but still continue hanging out if you want to. So again, everyone knows the shooter was not woke, was not a leftist at all. But if you listen to Fox News, Newsmax, One America, News, Breitbart, the Epoch Times, Red State, the Washington Examiner, the New York Post, I could go on. You will get the type of information that Shane wholeheartedly believes. Yep. So again, his trans roommate says otherwise. So I'm always one to say that if there's any information that you know of, by all means, bring it. Show it. Do what I do as I'm doing right now, Shane. I bring the receipts. Find some, and we'll check it out. So what do I think about the situation? So as I've said before, no, this was still a human being. And the way that he went out in life in front of his children like that, no one should experience that. No one, regardless of your ideology. It's inexcusable the way that this man died. But as I've been saying since the start of the stream here, what is inexcusable is the racist rhetoric, and vitriol that he spewed that is being attempted to be legitimized right now. That is a whole problem. But again, more folks who did not know anything about Charlie Kirk, who are now seeing some of the information that I'm sharing that is being broadcasted on larger platforms, are now realizing what the danger is. Yeah, I mean, there's has to be a level of fairness or somewhere where we can meet in the middle. Now, regardless of how I look at Nick Fuentes or Charlie Kirk, they both are cut from the same cloth. Although I believe there was some feuding that Nick Fuentes had with Charlie Kirk, because he said that Charlie Kirk was a fake in regards that he was not a true Christian, that he was there just to more or less get props for that. That was a beef that was spinning off between the two of them, but that was prior to Charlie Kirk's death recently. So Nick Fuentes was having a go at Charlie Kirk because of the fact he did not believe that he was a true dedicated Christian, and he was just into it for the likes and to more or less get his clicks up. So let's go ahead and move from that. Now, Don Jr., if you saw the video, was talking about, oh, there's going to be some people that are probably scrubbing their web pages. And you know what? They're right. There are people scrubbing their pages or their X accounts, but it is not progressives, or as Shane likes to call us, leftists. Here, let me share a little bit more information with everybody. No, that's not the one. Where is, okay, here we go. Just a moment, folks. I need to bring this back up to full screen. No audio required. All right, so this is what Laura Loomer had posted before it was known who the actual killer was. Now, it was all in the search. Oh, it's the left. It's the left. They sent a trained sniper to assassinate Charlie Kirk while he was sitting next to the table of hats that said 47. You could be next. I hate to say it, but I have a sick feeling we will be seeing more targeted assassination. The left are terrorists. And turned out it had nothing to do with the left at all. So as of this date, she has changed her tone. She has also changed her post. So you won't find this post out here anymore. Instead, what's now being talked of is love and forgiveness. But when she assumed it was a leftist, oh, they're terrorists. But wait, there's more. Hey, Marcus, you need to let them know, man. I come with receipts. All right, continuing on. Yep, leftists throw fast around like Tyler did on Charlie's bullet. Nothing right about that. Well, there's also some misgivings now about these shell cases and bullets and so forth, Shane. But again, I'm not going to disturb or anything that you feel that might be considered right. See what I did there? Might be considered right. But nonetheless, please keep commenting. As always, as people know, I reserve the right to be proven wrong. But until you can do so, basis the information that I'm finding, you're just spitting propaganda, partner. No, it's not true per se what's coming out of Laura Loomer's mouth. This is just ranting and rhetoric. Again, this is what was coming out of her mouth before it was made clear that the shooter was not a leftist. It was one of theirs. So this was the follow-up tweet that she had. It's time for the Trump administration to shut down, defund, and prosecute every single leftist organization. If Charlie Kirk dies from his injuries, his life cannot be in vain. We must shut these lunatic leftists down once for all. The left is a national security threat. Yeah, man. So clearly she was wrong on this. Again, it was not a leftist shooter. It was not a black person. It's not an immigrant. It was no one from out of state. It was a born and bred white Utahian, or whatever they call it, folks from Utah, who shot him, whose parents were Trump supporters. But you still have people try and make the claim it was a leftist, you know, like this guy. No fault, man. I've got a lag over here, Marcus. So if there is anything, let me know. Same thing, Shane. If you experience any type of lag, by all means, let me know. All right. So that was the second one from Laura. Do I have any more? Of course I do. Now, this one was before the incident that we're discussing right now. Now, this was an older tweet, but this goes back to, again, folks starting to see Charlie was propagandizing what he was doing. Now, I apologize if this isn't large enough for you guys to see here, but if not, you just have to go ahead and blow this back up and you get a chance when you look at it later. So I'll just give you a bit of context here. So basically, she was upset with Charlie Kirk because of the fact that it seemed like he was not really as into what he was preaching as was being relayed or seen by folks from afar. Let me give you a little bit of the verbiage here. I don't ever want to hear Charlie Kirk claim he is pro-Trump ever again. After this weekend, and right now I'm not sure what weekend that she was referring to. After this weekend, I'd say he has revealed himself as a political opportunist, and I have had a front row seat to witness the mental gymnastics these last 10 years. Lately, Charlie has decided to behave like a charlatan, claiming to be pro-Trump one day, and while he stabs Trump in the back the next. Turning Point USA was only able to thrive thanks to the generosity of President Trump. On the one-year anniversary of the assassination attempt on Trump's life, Charlie hosted Comic Dave at Turning Point's SAS conference, where Dave Smith was able to speak to a bunch of conservative youth at an organization that claims to be pro-Trump. Oh, hello, Caleb. Yep. R.I.P. Charlie Kirk. May God bless his family. So as I said before, Caleb, if you're new here, it's inexcusable what happened to Charlie Kirk. No one should experience that, especially in front of his family. But as I made mention before at the very beginning of my broadcast, people seem to forget Medgar Evers, Martin Luther King, both men shot and assassinated by cowards, shooting from afar, hiding off of rooftops and hiding from bushes. Now, the thing here is that when you look back at that particular point in time, the outpouring and expression where there may have been some was not to the extent of what we're seeing right now. Again, we had civil rights icons who were working to ensure racial injustice, racial inequality, and a racial divide was closed, and their widows were able to live and see that happen to a degree. They were able to see that. Again, these were men who worked to decimate racial inequality, racial injustice, and to close the racial divide. Whereas, again, we sympathize with Charlie Kirk's wife. We sympathize with their children. But the legacy that was left by her husband was one that was opening the divide. I'll say it again. Whereas Martin Luther King and Medgar Evers were trying to close the racial divides, and their legacy showed that they were trying to bring an end to racism, Charlie Kirk's legacy more or less attempted to broaden the racial divides and to perpetuate racism and bigotry. So I need to make sure that you understand that, Caleb, from the perspective that's being shown and demonstrated and provided over here. There is no aid and comfort that are given to extremists on my platform, but we can still have the discussion about what these people did, not to disparage them or make jokes or laugh about it, because it's not a laughing matter. Because racism and bigotry is still an issue. It has never gone away. But in this day and age right now, we're seeing it being legitimized. So getting back to this, on the one-year anniversary of the assassination attempt on Trump's life, Charlie hosted a Comic Dave Smith at Trump's USA. Oh, I'm sorry, I think I read that. 3 weeks ago, Dave Smith called for President Trump to be impeached and removed from office over his decision to blow up Iran's nuclear facilities. So we know this tweet is probably a couple of months ago. Charlie played both sides of the Iran issue on his show, as we all saw, because he wants to play to both sides of the aisle. The honorable thing to do is to have a position and actually defend it to the death instead of flip-flopping. Now, I will give her that much aspect here, that if you got a position, stand there and stand on it. Now, Caleb, you're saying prove it. I've already done that, Caleb. So you're 54 minutes into the live here. So if you want to see prove it, all you need to do is go back and rewind and have a look for yourself. But again, if factual information is not what you're here to debate, but you want to more or less come with an ideology that, again, is built off of bigotry and racism, then I can't help you. So again, I want you guys all take a look at this. And I told you this is something that we would see. He was no extremist, no racist. Name one thing he said that was racist. And look at this. What is extremist? It seems anything right is extreme, but thinking one can change gender isn't an extreme. So again, Shane, I see that you're trying to change the conversation, but we're staying with where we are. We're talking about bigoted statements. Oh, if I see a black pilot, I hope that he's not DEI. Now, as I said before, what we have is coded language that is used, so it's not as harsh as it normally would be. So the coded language here is to use DEI that represents black. And we know that there's disparagements against blacks. But in order to do that, and Mark, you know, we've had this conversation before. I'm just going to go ahead and say it. No longer can you say, and excuse me for using this on my platform, folks, you can't say nigger, nigger, nigger. But you say busing, you say states' rights, you say DEI. This is how you code that language so you can still express to others that, okay, yeah, we're still in lockstep. Now, you don't have to accept it. And again, Caleb, you can go to the beginning of the stream here if you like. I've still got a few more things to present here to illustrate what I'm talking about. But recognize again, you don't have to like it. Yes, he was a racist. Yes, he's an extremist. He's pushed these views forever. But because you don't accept it does not mean that it is not true. Hey, what's up, Smith? I thought you probably gone to bed yet. I know it's almost, what, 6 in the morning? I'm still up over here. I didn't agree with the things he said. I feel bad for his poor family. His poor daughter was only 3. Yes. And that is what I can sympathize for. Now, remember, Charlie Kirk said empathy was a made-up word that was destructive. He said, oh, I don't believe in empathy. But yet, somehow, we as others are going to show that to his widow and children. And notice now, what Caleb is doing now is this disingenuous conversation. So now you know what I believe. No, I don't. I don't know what you believe. I'm not going to have a conversation about what it is that you feel your belief is. That's not for me to say. Again, I'm speaking on what's been shown and proven through the actions of Charlie Kirk. Your belief system and how you take that is different from what I would be able to give anything or postulate about. No, that's not for me to say. So let's continue moving on. Well, we're already on that tab. So the whitewashing of Charlie Kirk's toxic legacy is underway. So again, this is not John Henry here. This is what's already been observed from others around the world. And this is just the news organizations that have been covering this story and even covering Charlie for his duration of being in the spotlight. Conservative active and pundit Charlie Kirk was shot and killed on Wednesday, becoming another victim of America's epidemic of gun violence. Kirk's death was a tragedy for his friends and family, but the response to it from many political leaders, journalists, and news outlets has whitewashed the substance of Kirk's activism, which involved an endless geyser of hate, bigotry, and misinformation. Well, here's the summary, Caleb. Charlie Kirk was a bigot. That is the summary. And I get it, you're asking questions, so I'm giving you the answers. As I said before, I'm already down the lane with the folks who've been here. So if there's anything that you want to catch up on, you're going to have to watch the restream. So I can't really stop right now because I've still got information to put forth. But you wanted the summary: bigot, racist, enough said. Summary of my proof, I just gave it to you. You want more? If you're not satisfied with the summary, you can watch the beginning of the video up until now. So that's about all the attention I've got to give to you, partner. President Donald Trump baselessly blamed Kirk's death on the political left in a video released Wednesday night, arguing for years those on the radical left have compared wonderful Americans like Charlie to Nazis and the world's worst mass murderers and criminals. This kind of rhetoric is directly responsible for the terrorism that we're seeing in our country today, and it must stop right now. Now, it's funny, Donald Trump is going to take the stage to talk about terrorism. Funny how he's forgotten about 6 January 2021. Okay, that was domestic terrorism at its height, pushed by Christian extremism. You could see the crosses, you could see the shirts. Trump was, what was something about Trump was anointed by God. All of this you saw. There is proof that goes back 4 or 5 years. But funny enough, Donald Trump has the audacity to talk about terrorism while negating everything that he was found to have committed himself. But I digress. Trump did announce on Thursday he would award Kirk the Presidential Medal of Freedom, which Trump previously awarded to the notorious racist Rush Limbaugh. Yes. So Trump, again, as I said before, is legitimizing the bigotry and racism and more or less what is going to be left of Charlie Kirk's legacy. And that is something that I and others who see this are just taking the time to make sure that folks who are not familiar with his background know, because we have a lot of folks who do not stay in the mix on a day-to-day of seeing what's going on. Here, let me do this. I'm going to turn on the comments. So in the bottom left-hand corner of the stage, if anyone's wondering what's being said in the comment section, you can't see that. You'll be able to find the information here. So again, the article takes its time to go through some of the works of Charlie Kirk here. Here, let me go ahead and skim a few things here. We know Brian Stelter. I think he's still with CNN right now. Oh. Yep, John put some of the things he said at the start of the stream, buddy. Yeah, funny enough, Caleb. Now, how is it that I told you the exact same thing? You didn't want to hear it, but Smith is telling you the same thing I told you, but it's all right for you to go ahead and take his information. All right, we'll leave it at that. Before I go any further here, so the whitewashing of Charlie Kirk. Let me do something here. Let's start with this right now, because again, there's a lot of information, but I still want to make sure that I don't skip over anything that could be considered important or poignant. Brian Stelter, CNN's chief media analyst, has been amongst the most blatant in whitewashing Kirk's career. In appearances on the network and in his Reliable Sources column, Stelter has portrayed Kirk as earnestly seeking fair debate across the political aisle. He invited people to try and prove him wrong, Stelter solemnly noted. Stelter has covered Kirk for years and is thoroughly aware of his bigoted remarks and actions, but Stelter chose instead to distort the record following the pundit's death, dishonestly offering up a false portrayal to millions of people. And yes, that's what you're seeing. Yeah, Josh, everybody knows that. But again, the fact that the shooter's boyfriend was a transgender has nothing to do with the bigotry that Charlie Kirk was routinely spouting. So as always, you guys want to focus on the victim more so than the perpetrator. But in this sense, we swap it around. The perpetrator of the shooter, yes, had a transgender boyfriend, which is coming out of the news. No one's going to deny that. But what's being denied now by the right is that this young man was not a leftist. He was not woke. Hell, he didn't even vote in the last election or so. His political affiliation was not liberal. It was not democratic. But it turns out that he was not a woke shooter. So again, I will say that the shooter should go to jail. He should receive the harshest of all penalties. That is something that we can say. If you want a specific time, Caleb, you can probably wait a day or two when I do time stamping. Otherwise, hey, buddy, you're just going to have to take a look at it. See, you're here for a quick fix somehow that you think will substantiate your argument. Whatever you want to argue about, anyone who's been following me since the beginning of the program knows that you've got nothing to stand on here other than the ground and the sneakers that allow you to do so. But keep watching. Kirk was a bigot, a misogynist, and a racist who regularly excused the very same sort of gun violence that ended his life. Again, this is Daily Cause, a news article. I'll go back up to the top and you'll be able to see where the story is and pull it down for yourself. In 2023, Kirk said it's worth to have a cost of, unfortunately, some gun deaths every single year so that we can have the Second Amendment. Kirk said in 2018 that gun violence in Chicago was the fault of a lack of father problem in the Black community. So if anyone recalls watching the video that I played earlier where Charlie was talking about gun violence, remember he said, well, what's some of the ways that we can lower gun violence? How about having fathers in the home? I made the statement. Who do you think that was for? Again, that was the coded racism that everyone pretends that doesn't exist. He was trying to say that gun violence was because there were no Black fathers in the home. Has nothing to do with it. But if you subscribe to the ideology that he does, it makes all the sense in the world. Why? Well, that's just how bigots think. Promoting racism was one of Kirk's most consistent stances as he led the right-wing pressure groups Turning Point USA and Turning Point Action. In 2024, he launched a campaign attacking the legacy of revered civil rights icon Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. Kirk said King was a myth has been created and it has grown totally out of control. At a conference he held the previous year, Kirk said King was awful and not a good person. Yeah, so again, we'll make the comparison between Charlie Kirk and Dr. Martin Luther King. It's the same thing as when he tried to call Ketanji Brown, Sheila Jackson Lee, and Vice President Harris incompetent and that they didn't have the brain power. But again, each of these women have masters to include doctorates. Charlie never finished college. And we're talking even community college. But hey, you go ahead and take his word for everything about who is and who is not an intellectual or a good person based upon what they've done for the community, to include for the race, as in human. Kirk claimed that the landmark Civil Rights Act of 1964 had become a beast and is an anti-white weapon. Basically, he had stated that that was the arming point for DEI. Now, when we think of DEI, it no longer means the original concept, which was division, diversity, equity, and inclusion. DEI has now become what I refer to as Trump DEI, division, extortion, and intimidation. I'm going to probably have a challenge online to see how many ways that can be explained differently by using those three letters and what people can come up with. But again, when you hear DEI nowadays, it's either going to be used as a pejorative to discredit and disparage Blacks. But if we want to use DEI in the sense of what it is represented by right now, by the threatening of law firms to remove their security clearances, the threatening colleges to prevent them from receiving their grants that have already been allocated, threatening banks with sanctions because of the fact that a made-up crisis is now being pushed out, stating that Christians are being discriminated against as well as conservatives. Trump DEI, division, extortion, intimidation. No, Leo. Hello. We are not here to celebrate anybody's death. Even though I am not sharing the same background with Caleb, nor Josh, nor even Shane, I want to make you known here, man. If you're going to be joining the platform, understand that this is no place where we celebrate the death of an individual. It is inexcusable how he died. But what we're talking about right now is the inexcusable actions that he put forth through his life. by racism, bigoted, and other types of vitriol that he put into the ether. That this article, one of many that you can find that discusses that, but by no means, no. If you're here to celebrate his death, this is not the spot for it. You're free to stay, man. But again, we're not celebrating the death of anyone here. Now, going back to what Don Jr. was saying, if you recall from the video where he stated that, oh, here we go. Somebody is going to be clearing out their boxes, sanitizing their pages. They're going to be changing everything based on the information that's presented. Nobody on the left side is changing any information. So here's the next article. Americans see left and right violence as equal issues. The data doesn't. Now, this is information that I've been tracking for a while that I myself am not going to try and convince anyone of, but you can always take the information that you find here and go forth. There's a wide gap between right-wing and left-wing violence in the US, and it doesn't line up with what many Americans believe. A YouGov poll released late Wednesday found that Americans are almost evenly split on which side poses a greater threat. 31% say left-wing violence is a bigger issue. 33% say right-wing violence is, and 36% weren't sure. The partisan divide was clear. 2/3 of Republicans blamed the left, while 62% of Democrats expressed more concern about the right. Now, if you guys can't see this, let me know, but the articles will be shared later. So if you take a look up here, this is going to give you a breakdown of how violence between left and right is viewed. However, the data on political violence shows a much more lopsided situation. So again, this is something that a majority of folks like myself who are social scientists, who look at society as a whole, being my background in psychology, bachelor's, master's, as most of the folks on my platform know, I'm currently a doctoral candidate going through my doctoral studies here. So a lot of the information that will be provided is going towards my thesis. But again, let's go ahead and do this one more time. However, the data on political violence shows a much more lopsided situation. A 2021 study published in the journal Criminology, Criminal Justice, Law and Society analyzed ideologically motivated extremist killings from 1990 to 2020. The results were clear. Only 42 incidents of politically motivated homicide, or 15.6% of all incidents, involved far left extremists. In contrast, far right extremists were responsible for 227 incidents, 84.4% of the total. But before, let's do this. Now, take note, everybody. Caleb was upset because he thought he was going to be able to walk in here and say, you're wrong. Prove me right. Well, there's nothing for me to prove here that information has not been provided. As we've said, Caleb, we've already provided enough where anyone who's here knows and can see for themselves that Charlie Kirk was a racist. Now, if you choose not to believe that, it's simply because you just are in complete denial. I'm not going to change that. I'm not trying to do that. All I'm doing is presenting the facts as they are, because the facts write themselves. I'm just showing people where to find them. And if you find it and choose you don't want to believe it, so forth. That'll be it. But believe me, we are not going to try and convince you of something that is clearly out in the open, especially when we've already told you that if you want to find it, go back and take a look. It's in between 0 minutes and up to now. Show a quote or clip that ain't out of context. Actually, I did, Leo. So, and again, as I've said before, time is pressing on. All I can tell folks is that, hey, you can go back and take a look. That's the beauty about video. Now, all the time that Kayla's been asking, he could have gone back and taken a look. I would probably say the first 10 minutes is all you need. That's where I can give it to you. Again, I'm not going to have anything timestamped just yet, so I can't tell you specifically where it is because this is a live recording right now. So the best I can tell you, between 0 and 10 minutes is more than enough information, or 0 to 15. So that's the best thing that I can tell you, Caleb. So understand, there's no one who's going to stop and go back here. We're going forward, and that's where everything needs to go. So again, I'm going to go ahead and read this back one more time. A 2021 study published in the journal Criminology, Criminal Justice, Law and Society analyzed ideological motivated extremist killings from 1990 to 2020. The results were clear. Only 42 incidents of politically motivated homicide, or 15.6% of all incidents, involved far-left extremists. In contrast, far-right extremists were responsible for 227 incidents, 84.4% of the total. So you don't have to take my word for it, which I know you're not. But basically what this article is saying is that it has always been right-wing violence that has been predominant in America. Now, for some of you who are not old enough to remember, I am myself old enough to remember when you had the right-wing folks that were bombing abortion clinics. Yes, actually bombing. So a lot of that, most of you are not going to remember or even have anything on your radar because you're not getting history presented or you're not looking for that information. Oh, I'm sorry, Leo. Did I forget to? Here we go. Plus, be honest. The left is the ones that keep putting things in the framework of black versus white or us versus them. We need to get back to judging people by their character. I disagree with that wholeheartedly, Leo. It's not anyone putting us versus them. It's generally the other side of the aisle. Anyone who has an issue is always going to be the one who makes it known where the problem is and where they think it is because of either having an authoritarian background or even a deeply religious background where someone is demanding to see order. Where do you see that coming from? I could tell you, but you wouldn't accept it. Again, I'm not trying to persuade or change anything that you may believe. Facts don't hide themselves from anyone, all right? They write themselves. I'm just showing you where to find it. Oh, I'm sorry there, Caleb, I missed out. We are all sinners. Take the plank of wood out of your own eye before you take the speck out of his. Again, you're only a sinner if you believe in that. I'm an atheist. So therefore, there's no sin that I can claim because there's no sin that I am guilty of or have committed. So that line of questioning is missed on me. Caleb, yes, we are all sinners, Charlie included. That being said, to Smith, correct. So as Smith already knows before he came here, I'm an atheist. I have no issue not worrying about what happens tomorrow or the next day or so forth because of the fact that out of, let's put it this way, outside of the Bible, per empirical evidence, where in recorded history did a man ever walk on water? The answer is never. Yep, you don't believe we're sinners even if you are? No, I don't, because sin is only something that is, exists in theocracy. Now, of course, I'll never say that I haven't lied or done someone wrong, but you want to call that a sin. I call that an action to whereas, yes, I was wrong. I don't call it a sin because sin does not exist for someone who does not practice the ways of the Bible. Yes, in your context, it's sin. All I simply say is I was wrong in what I did. But if you need a label that works for you, now notice, you need a label that works for you. So there it is. Oh, no, he's talking to me, Caleb, which again is just a waste on his part because how are you going to have a conversation with someone who doesn't share your beliefs? I don't, but I will still have the conversation with you nonetheless. So getting back to what we're saying, a far-right ideological motivated homicide has occurred at least once every year since 1990, the study's authors wrote. By comparison, far-left ideologically motivated homicides were present for only 17 years of the 31-year time span of the current analysis. As in this pattern of far-right violence hasn't slowed since 2020, the final year included the study's data. So what's being missed for the most part here is that you can see definitely that the far right has been the culprit of violence politically for the most part for the last 30 years. Now, whether or not you choose to accept that, it also goes to where you find your belief system that it comes from. And this goes to the Christian extremism that we're seeing right now that's becoming more and more apparent because the comfort level has been raised based upon Donald Trump now allowing it to be proselytized or to allow people to proselytize in the business place. Whereas openly, the thing is that if you practice your religion, you know, practice it amongst your folks who shares it, someplace where you guys get together where it's not a disturbance to anyone else. Now you can just walk up and say, "Hi, Bob. So how's your relation with God?" But that is the idiocy that we see that comes with forgetting that America is not a Christian nation, but extremists believe so. But there's nothing written in the Constitution, nothing in the Bill of Rights, any place stating that America is a Christian nation. It is not, never has been. And I don't appreciate how you said, I don't know how someone is going to have a debate with someone who doesn't share my beliefs. I'm wrong every day and think anyone can find common ground. Okay, so you don't appreciate it. But again, I stand by what I've stated here. I can try and have a conversation with you. But the fact of the matter is that if we can't see a blue car in front of us because I think it's blue, you think it's red, what do we have to discuss? All I can do is extend to you courtesy, which is what I'm doing right now. So as it says here in the article, for instance, the study doesn't include January 6, 2021, attack on the U.S. Capitol, for which President Donald Trump later pardoned his supporters. And in October 2022, an assailant broke into former House Speaker Nancy Pelosi's home and attacked her husband, Paul Pelosi, with a hammer. Earlier this year, Pennsylvania Governor Josh Shapiro's residence was set on fire while his family was sleeping inside. Then in June, a gunman targeted Democratic lawmakers in Minnesota, killing State House Speaker Melissa Hortman and her husband, and wounding State Senator John Hoffman and his wife inside their home. And all this was done by Christian extremists or the far right. Now, going further into this, right-wing violence isn't just persistent, it's accelerating. Yet many prominent officials, including the president, have downplayed or even excused it. So for anyone watching right now, even as you guys go back and forth in the chat, recognize here that what I'm speaking of is what we're dealing with right now, right-wing violence. And that is the one side that everyone seems to not acknowledge, or at least they are now. You are watching right-wing violence come to fruition, and the folks who are responsible for that are comfortable because they've got the support of the administration. Hey, what's going on, Dusty? Hey, did Fatty do a show today? I wasn't sure. I missed out on it, man. I am way up past my bedtime. It's 6 o'clock in the morning over here, so I'm fading fast, but I'm trying to hang on here just to finish out what I've got here. Feel free to jump back and forth with the guys down here. So basically what you have is Caleb here. He did it yesterday. Shit. So I think, what is it? Ladies first today. Yeah, we can probably look at this at another time. Let me give you my email address. Come on now. So Freddie got stuck as in timeout. What does that even mean, man? All right. Well, like I said, I'm over in Europe right now, so I can probably give Fatty a call on that. So getting back into this, as we see here, The killing of conservative activist Charlie Kirk on Wednesday has emboldened far-right voices to call for warlike retaliation against the left, even as Trump frames right-wing radicals as well-meaning. Again, think about this. The shooter, oh shit, his channel is suspended for 2 weeks. Oh, snap. Hit me on my email, Dusty. I'm curious to see what that's all about. It's not my job to show you proof. I'm not your dad. Go and do your own research. And of course, claiming random crap. See, this is what happens when folks know, or I won't say know, what folks are in fear of being proven wrong, although they've given the direction where to go, they'll still stay under the lamppost where they have the light that they brought with them, but they don't want to walk off the beaten path and take a flashlight to see what's out there. Not a deal. All right, man, I'll just go ahead and give Fatty a call later on, Dusty. Appreciate it for knowing, though, man. Thanks. Oh, by the way, folks, what am I doing? If you look at the bottom here, you should be able to see the comments that are displayed here in the chat over in the bottom right-hand corner of the feed. That is right, Smith. As I said before, Mark Twain once stated, never get into an argument with a fool. Reason being, they'll drag you in and pull you down and beat you with experience. So basically, as you can see here from the article, what's going down here is that it's pointing out that the majority of violence that we see politically has been right-wing violence, but it has not been acknowledged up until now, where it is being acknowledged, but it's also being excused and dismissed. So let's go ahead and let me just go back up to the top where you can see the name of this, or better yet, as I've said before, I'll go ahead and make sure that I share the information in the description. All right, so moving along. So for those of you who are here in the beginning, hey, what are you doing up this late, Alicia? All right, so gentlemen, we have a lady in the building. So as of right now, any of your nonsense, I've tolerated to the point that I have, but anything cross that comes in her direction, you're out of here. So I'm just going to make that clear right now. Wisdom is a part of my Council of OGs team, 3 OGs and a lady. So if you're not able to respect her presence or respect her, you are gone. Again, Caleb, there's no proof I can show you. Although I'll take it back. While you've been bickering back and forth, I've been presenting proof. If you're not going to pay attention, again, that's not up to me to make you see it. So whatever you don't see, Caleb, it's because you're choosing not to. And I'm okay with that. Again, it's not my job to try and convince you. Only provide the information for where you can find it if you choose to read it. I'm not sure what you're saying, Leo. I'm looking at your messages right now on my chat and also on the side of the stream as well. Oh, okay. That's why you're still up. Well, it's 6:15 in the morning over here. So yeah, I'm probably going to have to knock this off pretty soon. So we saw earlier where I presented a video of Nick Fuentes talking about hopefully he doesn't see any more violence in anyone from his camp. And we know that, again, he is a self-avowed white supremacist, his words, not mine, spouts racial vitriol and hatred on the norm, and he doesn't hide it. So I am not going to even need to prove anything with Nick Fuentes. However, again, another article just pointing out who Donald Trump has aligned himself with and who he's empowering to make the statements that you hear in today's environment. All right. So as many of you know, I do not post provide information from sites that have been rated low in journalism or fact. But the only reason I'm bringing this up here, being that it is Dukes of Hazzards here. Back when I was a kid, the show was a phenomenon. Now, back then, a lot of us, again, as kids, didn't realize what the General Lee was or what the rebel flag stood for, but we all loved the car. So Dukes of Hazzard star John Snyder says Charlie Kirk assassination will spark louder and prouder voices. Dukes of Hazzard star John Snyder believes Charlie Kirk's assassination will not silence the future generation of conservative voices. During an interview with Fox News Digital, Snyder said he believes people will be louder and prouder than ever. I think Charlie's example is going to be vast. I think it already is. I see it in some of the young folks and political activists. And again, as we've said before, and it's what's been shown here, you look at the racism, you see the bigotry, you see the references that have been made towards people of color. Again, DEI is now code to say black. I say once again, Charlie Kirk's in one of the videos that I provided earlier, where he says, if I see a black pilot, I think, gee, I hope he's not a DEI hire. Charlie Kirk saying that, oh, these women, all of them have to be black, don't have any type of mental capacity for processing information. But yet again, they all have masters and doctorates. He himself does not, but he's making the statement of their inefficiency to think. Then on top of that, he made the statement that they are so inefficient in thinking, his words, not mine, they had to steal a white person's slot in order to attend university. But again, all that proof that's been provided, and if you don't want to look at it, I can't give it to you. I've just stated what is there. I'm referencing the information that is contained inside of this stream. If you're not going to take it upon yourself to look at it, I can't do any more for you, Caleb. The actor told Fox News Digital he's working on a song titled Charlie's Voice, stating that the late conservative activist message won't go away. And it's funny how they always want to call someone an activist. But the problem here is that, as I said before, Medgar Evers, Martin Luther King Jr., these were men who worked to sow and close up the racial inequality, the racial injustice, and to also bring to a close as much as possible the racial divide, while the work of Charlie Kirk did the opposite, where it expanded and it widened. I think we're going to be louder and prouder. I hate to think of Charlie as a martyr, but I'm afraid that's what Charlie is now. In fact, it's going to be louder than ever, and we'll all be better people if we start using Charlie's voice. Right, using Charlie's voice. But as I've said before, folks, there is nothing that can be said about an individual who spreads hatred and vitriol, but then you've got others who share that thought, who see nothing wrong with it. Again, all I can do is present the facts. The facts write themselves. I'm just showing you where to find them. Now, here's the one thing that I need everyone to pay attention to right now, and that is the grief of a widow. Regardless of how you look at it, Charlie Kirk's legacy of bigotry, yes, it will stand. But before you look at that, understand that she has lost her husband in the most horrible way. And that is something that I would expect anyone can look at and recognize. Sure enough, Charlie Kirk said, oh, I hate empathy. I think it's garbage. I think it's destructive. All right, well, others choose to show empathy towards her. Again, she is without her husband. The children are without their father. It is inexcusable how this man left this world. But the words that he used and what he stated and put towards others, that is not excusable. Charlie Kirk's widow, Erika, has given a tearful address in which she thanked first responders for trying to save her husband's life after he was fatally shot on a Utah University campus. Kirk, a 31-year-old right-wing activist, was shot dead on Wednesday during an open-air speaking event in Orem. His suspected killer, Tyler Robinson, was arrested on Thursday night after surrendering to police. In her remarks, Ms. Kirk pledged, My husband's voice will remain. Turning Point USA, the organization Kirk founded, and has announced a memorial will take place on 21 September at State Farm Stadium in Arizona, which can seat more than 60,000 people. Yep. Oh, hey, welcome, Dogwood Tactical DT. Glad to have you in here. Charlie Kirk never preached hate, lies. You've either never watched him or you're intellectually stunted. No, I'm quite well on the intellectual scale as for the academia that I've participated in and still cover. Now, what I would say is that if you do not see the hates or the lies, then I'll put it to you guys like this. If your oppressor and your enslaver is also the creator of your savior, then you have been indoctrinated. And that's generally what I've noticed, is that a lot of folks who have been indoctrinated, who don't consider themselves indoctrinated, speak freely as if everyone shares their same mind frame. Now, that could be said the same of people on the opposite side as well. But in reality, when we look at disparagement, we look at what is used in speech to degrade, to denigrate others, to disenfranchise others. You can see where that comes from. But what you also see is the gaslighting, to where people will dismiss that because it doesn't serve the narrative that's being presented. But again, Dogwood, I don't mind you coming through, say your piece. Doesn't necessarily mean that anyone here will be accepting of it. But again, that's the beauty of free speech. Now, if you use your free speech to disparage someone else or to denigrate them, that is not acceptable use of free speech. But people will stand by it. Well, it's mine to use. All right, but don't be upset if someone does not share that or if they can demonstrate where your free speech goes wrong. But in the end, your free speech is going to be how you idealize or canonize yourself. Yes or no? Yeah. Yeah, so given the examples then. So again, you're coming in on a tail end of an hour and 36. So what I'll probably do is just go back through a couple of the videos here that if you guys have seen or have not seen, you'll be able to draw your conclusions from it. It's pretty much clear out front what's being presented. But for those who do not want to accept that, that's going to have a lot to do with your ideology. And again, I'm not going to debate your ideology, because if that's how you feel, who am I to try and change that? Now, there was an article that was put out back in 2014, when the media treats white suspects and killers better than black victims. Now, this has something a lot to do with gun violence, because that was one of the things where Nick had said in one of the videos, I'm sorry, not Nick, but Charlie Kirk had said that there was a gun problem, and he started talking about how crime was affiliated with blacks. Now, majority of the problem that you started seeing in the mid 2014s was that if there was a shooting, let's say that a black person was shot by a cop, what generally was seen is that, as opposed of looking at the incident of what brought the shooting on, and let's say if it was maybe even just a civilian shooting a black person, the person who was shot, normally the black person, was made to look worse than the actual shooter who had committed the shooting. Even if this guy was a banker, ate eggs for breakfast every day, always on time, what you ended up seeing was that, well, it looks like when he was 18 years old, he had a conviction with drugs. Okay, the guy was caught with pot. The man is now 45. But there's some type of negativity that has to be put out to make it seem as if, okay, yeah, if he got shot, well, maybe he had it coming, or he got away with something early, but now he'll atone for it. So this is probably a topic that's better for another show where we deal with gun violence, but doesn't really cover anything. So we'll skip over this one. But the last thing that I wanted to share here, and oh, hey, look, here we go. Crime is affiliated with fatherlessness and the lack and honor of Christ. No, it is not. Fatherless may be attributed to the poor decision of folks to have sex without considering whether or not both of them want to be together, to whereas they both should have worn a condom, or one of them should have worn a condom and protection, or somebody should have said no. Christ has got nothing to do with anything. Now, if I'm obfuscating, that means that there's something that you're looking for me to say that I haven't found. So what is it that you feel is being obfuscated? Now, if again, I'm obfuscating, you're looking to hear something that validates your bias of some sort, right? There's something that you want to hear that you're probably not going to hear on this side of the platform. So, folks, it's been fun here, but what I'm going to do is close things out here and show you what civil rights came to be, or what brought it to the forefront here. And these are people that died trying to ensure racial equality, that racial justice was afforded for everyone. On the Civil Rights Memorial are inscribed the names of individuals who lost their lives in the struggle for freedom during the modern civil rights movement, 1954 to 1968. The martyrs include activists who were targeted for death because of their civil rights work, random victims of vigilantes determined to halt the movement, and individuals who, in the sacrifice of their own lives, brought new awareness to the struggle. The chronology below describes their lives. More information is available at the Civil Rights Center, and this information is found at the Southern Poverty Law Center. So again, these are the folks who, put it this way, no, there's no subject change here. This has always been the subject. Again, Dogwood, you're coming in on the back end of a full hour and 40 minutes. So I'm okay with you feeling that there's been a subject change or someone's dodging. No one's running away from you. This is where I live. You just happen to come in at the back end of it. But I'll run a couple of clips here if you really want to see something, if that makes you feel better. Obviously, your confirmation bias needs to be fed. And we'll call that your need to be right. All right, May 7th, 1955, Belzoni, Mississippi. Reverend George Lee, one of the first Black people registered to vote in Humphreys County, used his pulpit and his printing press to urge others to vote. White officials offered Lee protection on the condition he end his voter registration efforts, but Lee refused and was murdered. Remember now, Charlie Kirk says civil rights was the biggest mistake that was ever made. August 13, 1955, Brookhaven, Mississippi. Lamar Smith was shot dead on the courthouse lawn by a white man in broad daylight while dozens of people watched. The killer was never indicted because no one would admit they saw a white man shoot a black man. Smith had organized blacks to vote in a recent election. And so that's a lot what was done even back after the Civil War was over, during the Reconstruction period, where blacks were being integrated into the South. Anyone who was seen aiding and abetting a black to vote, to get educated somewhat, they were put on the list, as well as folks who were targeted, and therefore you were either hung, maimed, or just shot. But these are the things that were happening in order to try and establish what came to be the civil rights movement of the 50s and 60s. Now, everyone is familiar with the case of Emmett Till. August 28, 1955, Money, Mississippi. Emmett Lewis Till, a 14-year-old boy on vacation from Chicago, reportedly flirted with a white woman in a store. 3 nights later, 2 white men took Till from his bed, meaning they walked into his house, took him from his bed, beat him, shot him, and dumped his body in the Tallahatchie River. An all-white jury found the men innocent of murder. And the list goes on, people. But again, as I said, I'll go ahead and make sure that I provide this information for you inside of the description, because I don't have one filled out right now. You did not give the full context of the full comment from Charlie Kirk on the Civil Rights Act. You have to admit all of what he actually said, because it goes against your narrative and proves. No, it doesn't really prove anything, if that's how you look at it. Notice we're looking at 2 ideologies, both competing. You wanting to say that the man was not a racist, me having already shown through the course of the show that he is, or information that would make it hard for people to say that he is not a racist. But again, that's where our ideologies lie. I see a blue car, you see a red car. No need for us to get into headbutting over this. But I will still provide the same information that I've had for others. Now, Caleb is just being difficult. Now, whether or not he says he's seen it, this is just bad faith on his part. Again, the facts write themselves. I just point you out where to find it. If you choose not to read it, I can't force that on you. Because you can't stand on the truth. No, I stood and jumped off the truth and did a flip. If you can't see it, I can't argue with you on that. Yeah, I'm really curious as to what you've seen. So you're the one that hasn't read it. You're lying by omission. Nope, you're assuming I'm lying because you have not seen anything that supports your bias. Clear enough. All right, so let's do this. So we'll go ahead and remove that. Let's go back into the clips here. Yeah, stand by here, folks. Let me bring something back up. Everybody bear with me for just a moment. Wait. All right, I am dead falling asleep here, folks. So this will probably be one of the last things that we'll do here before we close everything out. All right, so this is just a collage of Charlie Kirk's greatest hits, or the last ones here. So the first one, you kind of miss a portion of this, but basically what's being said here, Charlie Kirk has equated abortion to be the equivalent of the Holocaust. So this is the first thing that you're seeing here. So if you miss part of the audio, that's my fault. But here we go, fair use, fair use. If you can't hear it, let me know. It's not. DI. Oh, you know what? I'm sorry, you're right, folks. I didn't realize that there was no sound here. Let me back this up. Thanks for that, Alicia. I forgot when I shared this out, I did not have audio with that originally. So thanks for calling that out. I never would have noticed. Let's go ahead and let's reshare this again. So we'll go entire screen, but There we go. I got it right this time. We've got audio. So I said, anyone, if you couldn't hear it, let me know. But obviously, no one is interested in good faith at this point. So we're just going to ride this out. This is probably the last thing we do here because I need to get some sleep. So once again, we'll go through it again. And Caleb, no matter what you say, babies can't pray to God to save them. There is no God that anyone prays to. But again, this is the extremism that I'm talking about that has been permeated into the society that has now been given legitimacy. But again, that is your belief, and I'm not going to debate you on that, at least not about now while I'm falling asleep. Just understand that your thought process and the way that you choose is only going to be accepted by those who believe the same thing that you do. I don't, because again, there's no God that I worship or bow down to. Life is as you make it on a day-to-day basis. Moving forward, fair use, fair use. Again, let me know if you don't hear this, folks.
I am. In fact, it's worse. It's worse.
Have a look at Charlie Kirk in action.
Rob her, happening all the time in urban America. Prowling blacks go around for fun to go target white people. That's a fact.
It is
Black
not.
crime is a major issue in our country. Why are you pushing criminal justice reform exactly? Joy Reid and Michelle Obama and Sheila Jackson Lee and Ketanji Brown Jackson, they're coming out and they're saying, I'm only here because of affirmative action. Yeah, we know. You do not have the brain processing power to otherwise be taken really seriously. You had to go steal a white person's slot to go be taken somewhat seriously. Now, the southern border is, of course, the great replacement. They're trying to replace us demographically. They're trying to make the country less white. It is an anti-white agenda. If I see a black pilot, I'm going to be like, boy, I hope he's qualified. Taylor Swift is now engaged to Travis Kelce. This is something that I hope will make Taylor Swift more conservative. Reject feminism. Submit to your husband, Taylor. You're not in charge. America was at its peak when we halted immigration for 40 years and we dropped our foreign-born percentage to its lowest level ever. Miss Rachel, you quote Leviticus 19, love your neighbor as yourself. The chapter before affirms God's perfect law when it comes to sexual matters. In Leviticus 18 is that thou shalt lay with another man shall be stoned to death. Can we get that picture up, Ryan, of that Marvel's Avenger team? Now, I don't know who the person is on the left. Is the person on the left that came and did the interview with Joe, the TikTok? Your government is being run by freaks. It's like immediately I have like a flashback to a country where weren't able to do Bud Light commercials. What does being trans even mean? Is that even a real thing? It means you need therapy. We must ban trans-affirming care the entire country. I do think that there is a direct correlation between someone's testosterone and their politics. On young men, the lower their testosterone, the more likely they are to be Democratic.
So if you had a daughter and she was 10 and she got raped, and she was going to give birth and she would, and she was going to give birth and she was going to live, would you want her to go through that and carry her baby?
That's awfully graphic.
But it's a real life scenario that happens to many people.
The answer is yes, the baby would be delivered. When blacks in America did not have the same rights they had today, they were less murderous, there was less break-ins. Why is that?
So I'm sorry, are you trying to say that blacks thrive under
What an
subjugation?
absurd
I'm asking you a question. The data shows they were actually better in the 1940s. It was evil. But what happened? Something changed. I'm done talking about Epstein for the time being. I'm going to trust my friends, the administration.
So you're
trust his friends, the administration. But again, no matter what people can hear and pick out of that, I didn't hear anything racist. I didn't hear anything disparaging. I didn't hear any disenfranchising commentary. Of course you didn't, because again, you refused to. But anybody else of good sense outside of folks who would deny what's being said here recognizes bigotry and racism. So be it. Yeah, so all these clips are used without context. No, it's fairly within the same context. But the thing is that when you watch it from extent, you get more context of the bigotry that is focused inside of them. This was just something whittled down to give you the crux of the matter instead of having you to sit there and watch 3, 4, or 5 hours. But again, I'm not going to try and have an argument with folks who have confirmation bias on their hands and who see what is being presented as fake news, right? All right. We'll have to agree to disagree. And also for those on the Christian extremist side, you're wasting your time trying to have a conversation with me because, again, to me and other atheists, we view the Bible as being Aesop's fairy tales for Christians. So there's nothing that I can really give you to make you feel better about how you look at that. No, actually, confirmation bias, what you're playing is the description that you're applying right now to satisfy the narrative that you're looking for. Sorry, buddy, you won't find it here. All right, so we'll go ahead. We'll take this back from the stage and close it out because I've still got to get up and do some studying here in the morning. So I appreciate everyone who has come through, whether you like what's going on or not. Thanks nonetheless. All you've done here is gratefully given some time and maybe some shine that we can share with other folks who come by. But by all means, take the information with you. I try and do this at least once or twice a week on live, and then I have times where I drop a few shorts here and there on TikTok and on YouTube. But otherwise, we've got a lot of studying that I've got to get done here at school, but I'll make time for this as much as I can going forward. So all I can say is, again, appreciate you all for stopping by. Whether or not we agree on everything, sometimes we're just going to have to agree to disagree because ideology is strong. Disbelief will always exist. All right. But in the end, chance, probability, and the sphere of influence will always be the main dictators that requires no higher power. If you like it, let me know. Share it if you do. And subscribe. This is what you've been looking for. Thanks all. John Henry out.